Good evening and welcome to Connect to Escape. My name's Kara Sterling and this evening we're going to be discussing self-control. What exactly is self-control? Is it possible for us to dictate our own thoughts and feelings? And do we even want to? Would we prefer just to look out for self? Stay tuned to find out more on Connect to Escape. Joining me in the studio this evening, we have some special guests. We have Patrick Johnson, who is currently a doctoral student at King's College. We have John Olare, who is currently the recruitment officer at Newbold College. We have Sophia Peart, who is a student of theology. And we have Andrew Leyland, who is the director of English at Newbold College. We went to the British public and we wanted to find out what habit they thought was the most difficult to break. Let's see what they said.
What would be the most difficult habit for you to give up?
Sex.
Okay.
Smoking. Yeah, smoking. Yeah.
Watching bad television.
Most difficult, chocolate.
Being judgmental, I think would be a really hard habit to break.
I suppose the wife would say, stop watching the sport at home, but she doesn't like sport at all. So she would say for me to give up watching me football would be the worst habit I could give up.
Oh, men. No, I'm joking. Probably smoking.
Smoking. Smoke. Unfortunately,
Yeah, spending money.
smoking.
Using my computer.
Probably smoking.
Eating bad fast food. Eating fast food, I just can't give it up.
Smoking, I reckon.
Yeah, probably smoking.
The most difficult habit.
Watching TV. Watching TV.
Yes.
Eating potato chips.
Maybe staying in bed when I'm awake and not getting out.
Most difficult habit?
Yeah.
Chocolate.
I think the difficult one was smoking, and I've done it already, so I've conquered that.
Fantastic! Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good visit.
So we heard quite a variety of responses there. So Sophia, I wanted to ask you, what do you think would be the most difficult habit to break? Why are habits difficult to break?
I think habits are hard to break simply because they can be so ingrained in us. You know, I love sweets and I find it so hard to give up sweets. And I think it's something that, because of the desire for it, the desire feeds the habit. And that's why I constantly want to have sweets.
I think part of the thing as well with habits is, if you think about breaking them, the question of why should I really comes up, because as you say, it gets ingrained in who you are, and you think, okay, it becomes part of you. So in order to break it, you have to have a really good reason to stop then eating sweets or whatever else it might be. And without that, it's just an uphill battle, I would think.
Absolutely.
It's your lifestyle as well, because my biggest, I wouldn't say addiction, but habit is, and it can become an addiction, as we say, is eating late at night. And that again is lifestyle that needs to change. Eating after a busy day at work, eating for comfort, eating to socialise. But nothing wrong with eating, but it's the time that we're doing it. And it requires a change in how you live your life, I think, which is the same for many habits, I think.
And one of the things I've found talking with people that want to break habits, it's interesting how easy it is to form a new one, because research says it takes like 21 days or something to form a new habit, but how difficult it is to actually stop it. Well, once it's there, it really is not so easy to give it up, but generally 21 days is what it takes. I remember doing some clinics for people who wanted to stop smoking. And they thought, oh, if only I could just have a pill to stop me smoking or an injection or something. But the doctors often said, well, you know, you didn't take to smoking straight away. It took a while for you to actually get to the place where it was a habit that you enjoyed, as it were. So it takes a while to break it too. So yeah.
Definitely. I find as well that you almost need to replace that habit with something else, because there's the desire there, but there's also that comfort, and it's almost like a comfort blanket. So replacing, say for example, my sweets and the desire for something sweet with maybe a fruit or something generally helps me to get out of the habit for a while. I can't admit that it takes 20, I can last the full 21 days, but nevertheless, replacing that.
It's psychological, isn't it? I think with smoking, they say it's 4 to 7 days for the nicotine in your blood to be completely free. But obviously, psychologically, you've got to overcome your addiction there. You might physically be over it, but psychologically, that's the harder thing to conquer, I think. But it's not just about things that we consume and put into our body with addictions. It's a lot of other things, as said on the screen, computer games on your computer, bad relationships. Someone can choose be addicted to bad relationships as well. And again, it's all about lifestyle, the choices we make.
And it's often not just the one thing, because again, with my experience with people with let's say smoking, it was often the time at which you would smoke. So for example, after a good meal, you wanted to sit down and enjoy. So if you're going to break that kind of a habit, you have to break everything associated with it, because it becomes, as you say, it's part of a lifestyle of many things that you do.
Something I've noticed is that we say that we want to break a habit, and for the most part, it's assumed that it's a bad habit, right? I think the hardest habits to break are the ones that we don't know we have, you know, or the ones that we don't realize are bad. It hasn't affected our life, or it's not visibly affecting our life, and so it's almost, what's the point? You know, it's not doing anything to me, and so it often takes a lot to, you know, what they say, to first admit that you have a problem, right? Like that's the biggest step, to even admit that eating sweets for you, you know, is a problem, or using your computer too much, or anything like that. You know, you first have to acknowledge that this is an issue, and then you need to start working on what am I replacing it with. And so it's a task. It's more work to break it or to combat it. So it's like, do I want to do that work? But it's not bothering me really. So what's the point of?
And often it's a crisis that actually will precipitate the fact that, oh, maybe this is a problem. You know, you go to the doctor and they give you some kind of diagnosis, you know, diabetes or whatever it is. You got to cut down on the sugar intake, and that's when you think, okay, maybe I got to do something about it. But it's often that kind of a thing before you start thinking, this is something I'm going to have to do something about.
You know, we all have our addictions, and I think some of it can be personality, can lead you to certain things, and maybe the makeup of how we are. Some have addiction to sugar, which isn't my problem, but I have addiction to other foods, which are equally as bad. I was listening to some people on the radio a few days ago who have addiction to Coke, drinking 12 litres of the stuff a day. That's something I don't even think I could put 12 litres of anything in me, let alone Coke. So, yeah.
So as we can see, addictions and habits, all of these things, they come in different shapes and sizes. And we're going to get into this a little more. But before we do, I hope you enjoy good music, because we're about to hear from Paul Lee.
If I thought it was safe all around me, then tell me, why do I pray? And if I don't have the words of conviction, then tell me, what do I say? Oh yeah, I cannot stay much longer on a road that will lead me to pain. Oh, I can but grow much stronger. My reward as I pass through the rain, fast and pray. Fast and pray. Do it today. Oh, I gotta fast and pray. So excuse me if I come a-running. I know I need you each day. Though there are times when I stumble and falter, hold me, help me, renew my faith. Whoa, whoa, yeah. My path is so much clearer when I wholly rely on your grace. Whoa, I now can't stand much longer. How I long to see you face to face. Fast and pray. Fast and pray. Do it today. Oh, I gotta fast and pray. Love, joy, and peace are the fruits of the Spirit. You must fast and pray on God's words, and you will stand on that day. Oh yeah. Deep communication. Fast and pray. Talk to me. I gotta do it today. Oh, I gotta fast and pray. Speak to me. Fast and pray. Oh, communication. Fast and pray. Talk to me. I gotta do it today. Fast and pray. Speak to me. I'm down on my knees. Lord, meet my needs. Give me a word for today to help me on my way. I'm down on my knees. Lord, meet my needs. Speak to me. I'm down on my knees. Lord, meet my needs. Give me a word for today to help me on my way. Down on my knees. Lord, meet my needs. Hey.
What a soulful voice. I could listen to that all over again, but we do have a conversation to continue. John, I know that self-control is something that you have some thoughts on. Could you share your story and your experience with us?
Oh, definitely. I just think back to my final year of university. I was a student at Southern Adventist University in Tennessee, and one of the classes that we had to take was it was called Christian Spirituality, and my professor, Dr. Nixon, throughout the class and throughout the year, he was just talking about different things and different aspects of Christianity, what makes a person a Christian, and different things like that. We came up to the topic of habits and what we're talking about, self-control and whatnot. And I was sitting in the back of the class, not really paying attention. And the question was asked, what is one of your worst habits? Now, no one expected anyone else to speak up because, that's a private thing. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't have any really bad habits. There's nothing that I do that is, keeping me from functioning as a respectable, citizen, a good human being. I did what I was supposed to do. I went to church. Once in a while I went to, a prayer meeting or a program in the middle of, the week, and I had, friends and whatnot. But as I was processing this, I realized that I was on my phone. Like he had asked the class a question, and I was thinking about all this stuff in the side of my head, but I was on my phone, and I was on a very popular social media site, and just not posting anything, not really doing anything, just scrolling, just scrolling. And I can just remember Dr. Nixon saying, well, something that we're going to try this semester, for 7 days, you're going to try a social media fast. And the only reason why I heard that was because at that point, everybody kind of sighed. Everybody was like, and then he said it again, and I realized that this was a real thing. It was part of our grade. Part of our grade was giving up social media for a 7-day period. And it was amazing how quickly I started to figure out, okay, well, I have to be off social media, but I can get my friends to post for me. Or, I can hang around my friend's room and they can tell me what's going on. I'm not going to be really without it, whatever, I'll get the grade. But for some reason, a part of me was like, hey, John, try this out. Try this out where you turn off all your social media pages, limit your cell phone usage to, sending and receiving messages and calls when needed, and see what happens. And so I would like to say that I went through the 7-day period without ever getting on social media. So if Dr. Nixon is watching this, I apologize, but I didn't make it. I think I got 3 days in, and I was just, I was missing something. I was missing this sense of knowing. I needed to be connected to these different things. And so maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the 7-day period, I went on just to get my fix, catch up on what's going on, who posted what picture, who liked it, who commented on it, what did they say. But at the end of the week, some of my classmates were sharing their experience, and they were just talking about how, it was a time they saved so much time by putting away and turning off these social media things that they were able to read more. Some of them said that they were able to spend more time with God, spend more time with their friends. They weren't too bothered because they weren't receiving bad information or bad news on these social media sites. They were just doing what they were doing. They were able to finish homework. And I felt like I'd lost something, like I had missed out on this opportunity to discover what life was like without social media. So a couple of months later, I decided to do it for myself. And this time I logged out of all my social media accounts. I gave my good friends my passwords and told them to change my password, so that I wouldn't even be able to access it if I wanted to. And I told myself that throughout the day, every time that I would reach for my phone to try to log into it, and I realized I can't, that was going to be a time for me to either contact my significant other or pray. I don't think I've communicated that well with my now fiance in a long time, because it was such a big part of my life and I didn't even realize it, and giving it up was awesome.
Thank you, John, for sharing that with us. I think you've really hit the nail on the head that, it's difficult, but there are so many benefits to it. And just to continue our discussion, I wanted to find out, do we use our natural human instinct as an excuse for not exercising self-control? Andrew, I'm going to throw this one at you. What do you think?
I think that's a really difficult question, Karis. It's a really good question. Yeah, like John said, our natural instincts to pick up a phone, to pick up a cigarette, to pick up some food that we perhaps we could do without. An instinct could be, an addiction we have is the way we treat other people. That's our natural instinct. We put a barrier around us and push people away. Whatever our addiction is, I think there is an instinct there. I think we can use it as an excuse, more so because we're not addressing why we're doing that. There's got to be a reason why. We all do social media. Why do we need to know what other people are doing? And often it's for no good reason we need to know. Why do we need to communicate with somebody we communicated with an hour ago? There's got to be a reason why our human instinct is driving us to do this. And I think, yeah, if we don't look at that, really look within ourselves, we can just dismiss our addictions as well. I can't help it, sort of thing, which is the usual excuse. I just can't stop smoking, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop using social media. Well, yeah, that becomes an excuse then. We've given in and given up.
And the crisis aspect that you brought in earlier, in the sense that sometimes it takes something drastic for us to even realize that it's an issue. You know, I have some friends who do smoke, and they said that they didn't realize that they needed to stop until someone close to them was diagnosed with lung cancer, or somebody identified or told them, hey, I just don't like being around you. And it's something, it's almost like it needs to be a shock to us for us to realize that something that we're doing is a bad habit. Because there's good habits. There's good things that we do automatically. But these crises sometimes come so far in between, and there's so much time in between them, that once again, it's our natural instinct is like, why change a good thing? Why alter something that seems to be working? I'm getting by. I'm waking up in the morning. So what's wrong with what I'm doing?
Yeah, I guess that is the point, isn't it? That's inherent in the question. If it's a natural instinct, why should I always be fighting myself? Because surely that's a very, unfulfilling way to live your life. If you're always second guessing yourself and always thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because it isn't good for me. It's not a very appealing way to live your life when you think about it. And I think maybe part of the solution to that is perhaps the fact that we are meant to be thinking beings, reflective, and not just going on instinct. We expect animals to do that, but as human beings, we have this great gift of intellect and able to reflect, and are then able to govern our own lives by this, well, okay, I do think. And that's a great gift. Let me use that to influence the choices I make then, of the things I do and the habits that I form.
I think going with our natural instincts as well, we then forget that what our habit is actually affecting other people. John mentioned in his story that the amount of time that he was actually spending on Facebook, he wasn't giving to his significant other or to his relationship with God. Our habits rob other areas of our lives, including those people who are in our lives, and we can sometimes it almost becomes selfish. I'm feeding myself because I need this. It's comfort. It keeps me going. It's my desire, and we've talked about smoking. It can have drastic effects, not just on relationships, but even other people's health. If I'm smoking in a room, other people are affected by my smoke, and that can have, like I said, drastic effects.
I think as well, laziness is a big thing with habits. Certainly I can say for myself, is that small little things which build up and affect other people, as you've said, is when you look back, it is an instinct to be lazy. Not putting your socks away at night can upset my wife, or not doing small things around the house which trouble other people. Habits sometimes can be just an expression of our laziness. And then going back to your question, Keris, it's really not any excuse other than to address the root, which is how do I be a bit more active rather than lazy, and patterns as well. Yeah. Patterns of good behaviour, patterns of negative behaviour are something I think which we need to consider.
So as you can see, we're really learning a lot about self-control and how it impacts us. We have Patrick Johnson with us on the show this evening, and it would be interesting to hear your thoughts. I know this is something you've spent time researching. What's your take on this?
Yeah, thank you. The media seems to feed us a lot of impressions about self-fulfillment, self-indulgence being the path to personal happiness. Just go for it and you just get whatever you want and do whatever you like. Does that really work? If you compare it to something that was said in this ancient book in the Bible, where Jesus actually says, well, the real path to true fulfillment of life is for you to deny yourself, take up your cross, and then follow me. And so you've got these two conflicting ideas. Which one would be right? That's what I wanted to just reflect a little bit on. Edward Welch, the academic dean at CCEF in Pennsylvania, once wrote that one reason capitalism works is that it understands the greediness of the human heart. And I thought that's really very significant, because that really is a fundamental understanding of how we humans are. Our hearts are greedy. Now, it's not a very flattering thing to think about, but if you reflect on that a little bit, you find, yeah, it's pretty true. Why is it that we crave attention the way we do? Children that crave so much attention from adults. People that jump from one relationship to another, it's because their hearts are greedy for attention. We can become greedy for entertainment, and that's why we can spend hours in front of TV or computers or whatever else, because the heart becomes greedy for that. We've talked about already how we can become greedy for food and uncontrolled appetites and lifestyles that take control there. One of the guys that answered on our question said sex would be the thing that he would have a hard time giving up. And, we become greedy for that, and look at the whole pornographic industry. Why does that flourish? Because we become greedy for that. We can become greedy for significance, and that's why so many people are overworked and stressed out with all kinds of illnesses. So, I guess there's a fundamental understanding we are greedy at heart as human beings. So, if that's the case, what is the best way to become truly happy and self-fulfilled? Well, if we to just look at those two things that Jesus himself says, the first one is to have a mindset of self-denial. So if you're going to truly find a happy life, deny yourself. Now, that's not a very popular thought today. The thought really is that I want and I want more, and that's what advertising works on. That you really want this product. It's something you truly want to have a really fulfilled life. But as we've already spoken about, the problem with that is that we get so easily owned by our desires. They take control, and that greediness of the human heart then makes us so prone to addictions and addictive behavior. So self-denial comes in then as a different kind of a mindset. And often if you use that phrase, self-denial, that conjures up in people's minds some painful and strenuous act that you've got to keep repeating from time to time against great internal resistance. You don't really want to, but you just got to do it anyway. But that's not really what Jesus is trying to point at. Self-denial, as he seems to talk about, it's where you grow to the point where you no longer experience it as denial. One example I think about from my own life, when I was younger, I used to love chocolate. And I discovered in my teens that for some reason or another, I very easily caught a cold if I ate a lot of chocolate. Now I've since learned, chocolates have a lot of sugar in it, and that's most likely the reason why. But before I knew all of that, I thought, this isn't really good. So I started to cut out chocolate more and more. And I cut it out completely for a good while. And then I remember thinking, oh, maybe it wasn't that after all, and trying some more chocolate again. And lo and behold, got a sore throat and prone to getting a cold again. So I thought, no, I can't be doing with this. I gave up chocolate completely. And for many years, now I don't like chocolate. My children say I'm really weird. The only person they know in the world that doesn't like chocolate. But now, because for me it's not a self-denial thing. No, it's just a natural thing. And I think that's the place we need to get to when it comes to self-denial as a mindset. It's coming to a place where it's not always, oh, I've got to work hard at it. It's, okay, I don't do that because it really doesn't faze me in any way. It's actually self-fulfilling to have a self-denial kind of a mindset. But the second thing that Jesus talks about is if you're going to have this self-denial mindset, you need to take up your cross and follow me. That's a really religious kind of a thing. And often we think, taking up your cross is a really burdensome kind of a picture that comes up in our minds. Sometimes if a person has a disability or an injury or a weakness, we say, well, that's just the cross you have to bear, because it's something very difficult and it's almost a picture of drudgery when it comes to the cross. And maybe you've even seen films of where, crucifixion scenes with Jesus carrying this huge thing and he's almost falling under the weight of a cross. That's what we think of when he says, take up your cross and follow me. But actually, what Jesus is doing when he uses that picture is he's using the startling image of using an execution instrument. So in Jesus' day, that's where you would be executed, by being hung on a cross. So basically he's saying, take with you that which you use to kill yourself or kill your desires. Today he wouldn't say take up your cross. I mean, it would be take up your electric chair or take up your lethal injection or take up your noose or firing squad. It's talking about taking with you that which you use to put to death unwanted desires. Now, do we ever do that? An example of this would be, for example, if you wanted to learn to play the piano. I wanted some years back to learn to play the piano, and I decided, okay, I'm going to put aside 20 minutes a day to practice playing the piano. And so that's what I did. And for the first 2 weeks, I was really good at it. Every day, religiously, I practiced 20 minutes, these scales that you have to do. And then came the third week, and it's like, oh, I can't be bothered with it today. But I thought, oh, I'm going to do it anyway. So I decided to keep practicing. Now then, what was that? The desire was not to do it, and yet I decided I'm going to do it anyway. That was my cross. So basically, your cross is your decision-making ability. So take up your cross, have the power of decision-making, and keep denying those desires that you don't really want. And when you think of it in those terms, suddenly taking up your cross is a form of great power to you, yeah? Because I think our challenge often is that we go on automatic pilot, and instead of keeping our conscious decision-making process with us, we start thinking, oh, I can't be bothered, I'll just, and not bother practicing today or whatever it is. So it really paints a picture of power and possibility. In other words, don't put down your decision-making ability. And Edward Welsh, he also says, reckless self-indulgence and being owned by your own passions was not intended for human beings. Such behavior has more in common with a dog than it does with with God's design for us. Now is the time to start acting like the person you soon will be. In other words, to be really human is to really be one who knows the power of a self-denial mindset and taking up your whatever it is, cross or whatever it is, and constantly making the decisions that you know to be right. There's a famous test called the Stanford Marshmallow Test that was done by Walter Mischel way back in the late 60s, early 70s, where he studied children who, by putting them in a room and often it was marshmallows, but some other treat, and saying, you can have this treat now, or if you wait for a little while, you can have twice as many. And the researcher would leave the child in the room and go out, and about 20 minutes later come back in again. And he observed what the children did. Some were sitting on their hands, some were turning away from it, some were doing all kinds of things, hiding their eyes, and etc. And some just automatically ate the sweet. But what was interesting was the follow-up, where they studied these children, and the researchers found that children that were able to wait longer for the preferred rewards tended to have better life outcomes. Those that were able to deny themselves. So when you looked at their SAT scores, when you looked at their educational attainment, looked at their body mass index and all other kind of life measures, those that were able to deny themselves at first had better life outcomes later. And that was used as an example of the fact that, self-denial, self-control through life actually makes your life a whole lot better. So my conclusion is then that maybe Jesus' words were a little bit right after all. If you really want to have a good life, it's not just about go do whatever you feel like, just let it out and let yourself loose in a sense, but really have this self-controlled mindset and don't let go of your decision-making ability, because that's what gives you the real power to live a very self-fulfilled life.
So we're finding that although self-control, is possible and we can do it and it has benefits for us, but is it something we can do in all aspects of life? Is it possible to exercise self-control in all aspects of life, or is that just a little, unrealistic, John? Do you think?
Is it possible? I believe so. Is it easy? Is it something that is simple to do? I don't know. Personally, I know that it's difficult for me to to display self-control in maybe food, or certain. Like I have it grasped down, on on certain things, but on others, I find it harder to do. And so, in terms of the whole life being practicing self-control, I'd have to say it's quite difficult.
I think if it's not ourselves who take ownership of our lives, then who's going to do it for us? We'll all be in trouble if we just said, I've got no self-control, so that's it. I just live. And unfortunately, that's pretty much the way of the world today. From lifestyle choices, relationship choices, how they choose to live. This is what I want to do, and that's who I am, and if you don't like it, tough. And that's kind of why we're in the trouble we're sort of in. I've spent time in countries in the Far East, over in South Korea, and countries there where self-denial is an important part of culture, and you see the results, as Patrick said in his talk. These people generally then live more prosperous life, healthier life, mentally, physically better. Self-denial is something I think that's quickly been erased from our society here in the West, and if we're not going to take ownership ourselves, then who will do it, sort of thing. Those are my thoughts.
It's funny because I'm thinking, is it possible? Of course it is. I was thinking about my decision at the beginning of the year to do more exercise, and the fact that I was denying myself that extra half an hour in bed to actually go for a run or to do Pilates or something like that. And what I found is that those mornings that I did, my day was just so much more enriched. I was so much happier because I denied myself those 20 minutes. I took up my cross, took my decision and moved forward with it. And I think it is possible with many areas, and as Andrew's alluded to, and I think we all have, that it does make us feel much, much better, you know. It helps us to live healthier lives when we practice self-control. So we can often think of self-control as a negative thing, but it is actually a very positive thing, not just for ourselves, but for those around us.
So what I'm hearing is that, you know, there are definite benefits to exercising self-control, but, you know, for people who may be watching and thinking, okay, so that's the result, but how do I get there? You know, how do we go about breaking these bad habits that we have?
I think the first thing would have to be, why do I want to do it? So get that in place, I would say. So have a good motive for why you want to change whatever habit or whatever it is. And then just make small steps. I think it's a matter of possibly breaking it down into small steps and thinking, okay, I can decide for today, for right now, this is what I'm going to do. And keep making those small steps. I think all too often, you know, we make New Year's resolutions about, okay, I'm going to run a marathon in the next 6 months. It's pretty unrealistic. You're never going to make that. You'll run too far and get injured, and then that's the end of it. But if you break it down into small little steps that you can experience, that you actually succeed, success breeds success, and you keep going, I think, in that way. And that really is it. Once you experience, for example, getting up at half an hour earlier and doing your run or whatever, you feel, okay, I'm better now because I'm doing this. Then that helps you to keep going and to keep making those kind of decisions.
I think as well, you got to be real. If your addictions and habits are, some obviously are more serious than others. Drug addiction to pornography, as we've said. Then sometimes you can't do it by yourself, and you've got to surround yourself in an environment or the places where people can help you, because sometimes it's beyond, we can't do it ourselves. There is the idea in faith of praying and connecting with God and asking Him to give you strength. But there's also value in going to people and saying, I can't do it, because I believe God does use other people to help you. We don't always have to go through, just us and God. God works through other people to help you. So I think it's important to admit at times, with all the best will, self-denial, you may need some help to get through.
So what we've been learning this evening is that self-control, although it is difficult and it may take time, is something that is possible and something that we can do, and that there are many benefits for us, and that if we surround ourselves with the right people and draw on the right sources, we can definitely get there. Let's just take a moment to enjoy some music by Kirsty Esselval-Smars.
So the little moments, humble though they be, make the mighty Little drops of water, little grains of sand, make the mighty ocean and the pleasant land. So the little moments, humble though they be, make the mighty ages of
I'd like to thank our guests for joining us this evening. It's been a privilege to have you, and I know we really appreciate you taking the time to not just discuss self-control, but also share some of the issues and the habits that you yourselves have struggled with. Also, to thank you at home for tuning in and joining us. I hope that you feel empowered and positive about tackling some of the bad habits in your life. I know that I am. Please, I'd like to invite you to join us at the same time tomorrow, where we're going to be discussing the concept of Jesus. But for now, take care and see you soon on Connect to Escape.